well, let's get Monmouth started then. In this scenario, in both the big scenarios, I don't know about the other one, the Colonials are the first player. So we take a quick look, command phase. All right, well, we have to check the general lead table. We're going to be doing this a lot. Hey, I'm going to use rounded dice for this. It must mean I like it better than most. No bonus for Washington. Roll a 5. I'm going to have 3 command points with Lee. He's got a 5-hex range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, but there's some special rules here that apply. Wayne, I think, never needs to be activated. I didn't mention all of these before, but he's way out there. Let's see. Wayne is always activated, and he can command some of the Lafayette forces. I have to be careful with Lee, though. And there's something screwy about Lee. So I remember Lee historically did something weird where he ran back to Washington and kind of gave up, basically. Anyway, since this is the center of what we want to take care of, I'm going to send Wayne with what he can have here. Now, I'm a little questioning about what the activation range is here. Because basically I can't, Scott's in range, Maxwell's in range, Lafayette's not in range, and he's not in range, a couple of his units are, but he's mainly not in range of Wayne, which seems to me to say I can't move out. Now, if I'm allowed to use the road movement rate or something like that, that's a little different. So let's be within Army Leader's command radius. Let's see if the command radius is any different than I think. I thought I'd be just jumping in and doing things, but yeah, it's always this kind of lookup. It's just distance in hexes. Yeah, so I don't think Lafayette can actually move. Oh. Well, now wait a minute. Activated. Let me make sure. Okay, he can't use grand tactical movement. He can use movement. So that's kind of cool. All right, so we're going to grand tactical move with Wayne. Now, that's, I think, 6 hexes, or is it 12? There's something about 12 and something about 6 there. And I don't remember which is which in terms of the range. Yeah, we got to look up everything. Must remain at least is 6 hexes away and 12 strength points. I can remember these bolded things. This is the thing. Like, I'm very visually oriented when it comes to remembering where the rules are, but you start putting a lot of color and clutter in, and it gives me problems. But here, like the bolded dark, that works for me. Too much of it, like these style of rules started doing towards the end, that starts confusing me even. Okay, so let's get these guys moving, I guess. No rally. That would have been a British rally. So now we're on march. Well, we're going to head down the road. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and pull these down. We're going to bring Lafayette with us. He can't use grand tactical movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with his own units. So he'll head down here. We'll try to get his units within range of Wayne so that they can be combat effective. But I want to swing through here now. Who controls those things at the beginning? Anyone? No one? I don't know. I suppose nobody controls them at the beginning? I'm not sure. I get some more Lafayette here. And we'll send him an artillery battery too. I don't know if I can stack there. I think I can stack infantry and artillery. Gotta look everything up, right? but I don't think there's any prohibition in it. It looks like I can. Some of these games penalize you for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll just leave it over there. All right, but now we're at Scott, and I'm going to send these units down this way. And again, I hope stacking isn't exceeded anywhere. I don't think it is. These are all kind of small. Let us get Lee somewhere else, not where he'd end up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can command both Lafayette and this force if he's there. So if he gets another lucky roll, he'll be able to order all 3 units. Over here, I'm leaving Dickerson in the woods. That's probably his best place he can be. We're too far away for any infantry fire. Artillery fire, I think we're too far away for 2. The only cannons unlimbered are way back here. There's like... It's less than 12 hexes, I'll tell you that much. Look here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hexes for 6 or 12 pound guns. And we should take a look at what this is. It's only a 3 pounder. The big guns come out later. Which means that we have gone through the American side. Get these dice over here. Nothing else happening. And we'll be going to the British side of the turn. Old battery wasn't charged all that well. Okay, so on the British side, I've got 5 command points here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can command loose for one of them. The other 4 I'll use here on these independents. And this is activation, so I can... There's not a lot that's an advantage to that, although I could, like, send these guys along the road who are already on the road, but I'd rather set up on the road and march the entire command all at once. Over here, Erskine can command a couple of units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Otherwise, though, he's not in command. I believe. Let me take a look. Erskine may be able to command everything. Not this one, it's out of his range. But let's see what the effects are. Reduced half movement allowance and some additional. I can't fire. Okay. I definitely don't want to be in the position I'm in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to march forward these grenadiers. I want to get more power so that I can reduce the amount of points that the colonials can get. I don't have a big enough force to do much more than hold this and what's back here and prevent them from getting the victory points from that. But I think I have enough to at least prevent them from taking all 4 of the road spaces, which is kind of important. They didn't quite get any of them yet. Okay. In order to do that, I can put these guys in column. They're small enough they can fit. And we'll move them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move them up there. I'm going to move this here. Actually, what this does is 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm going to move this down a couple of hexes. I don't think I need it quite that far over. Okay. So I think we're okay with everything here. And now these guys, I I can drop them into column 2. Just in case the Continentals go fleeing back that way. Luce's command, this is all going to mobilize. And you could say, hey, shouldn't, you be defending Monmouth? Yeah. There's a lot of room for the Colonials to make their way to where they're threatening it. So I feel like I can push this stuff forward and dominate that road hex. But we'll see. When maneuvers coming around here, coming around the back can be a real threat. Now if you look at the reinforcement schedule though, I got a lot of troops coming in a long time before any of the Colonials start coming. So that's kind of important. Let's see what we got here. I think wagons pay a half. Artillery, no. Leaders are the guys who pay a half no matter what. So we don't want to get our cannon in the way there. These guys can all move Grand Tactical. Not less than 12. Shit. And definitely not less than 12. And we'll get Cornwallis somewhere where he can command lots of troops if need be. And really not a lot's gone on yet, but that's the end of the first turn. Now, the Monmouth Courthouse scenario I think is the 20, and the hedgerow is a little tighter one. Oh wait, no. 20 and 21. I don't remember which scenario is which. Monmouth Courthouse, last 10 turns 5 to 14. Yeah, that's this span. 21's the big one. Where's the simple? The hedgerow scenario is turn 15 through 19, which is kind of a slice in here. And that's the area where the fighting was happening around there. In my play of this game, that almost never happens. The Continentals are able to hold the line pretty much through here fairly easily. We'll see if that holds true for this game too. Second turn, General Lee only got a 1-point activation, so he sent Lafayette forward and then is marching with these guys. This is kind of a pain because coming around this way is really unpleasant. However, it's what I've kind of settled on every time I've played is send Wayne and Lafayette forward, let Wayne command as much as he possibly can. Keep Lafayette as kind of a reserve who can funnel troops in and out of Wayne's command, basically, and try to pin the Brits here, and then try to bring these guys forward. As of right now, we've got 2 of the 4, which means we'll be getting a victory point. Now, the game covers only these loss markers. It doesn't have victory point markers. It also doesn't have a track to use them on other than maybe the game turn record track. So that's how I'm going to keep track of victory points. Is I'm going to use the loss markers as victory points on the game turn record track onto the British side of things. See, we've got to come out. These dragoons can actually do something nasty, but note this. Dragoons count as disordered units when they fire, so they're not particularly good at firing. I can slip up and shoot up some of these columns that are coming forward. I took this risk to try to deploy my troops as quickly as possible. I think actually I'm going to pull back 1 more hex, just because the entire force is then gathered together. And that'll let me, try to exert enough control here that the Brits can't swing up the road and get rid of whoever this is, Dickerson's militia, some New Jersey guys there, which allows me to take 3 of the 4 then fairly easily and kind of pin things down. This tends to be a really, really bloody tactic in comparison to the historical, but I feel like it's appropriate. Guns are no better at firing than the infantry in column here. A Union column dragoon, they both have that same fire chart, and the dragoon, well, they're not a great target. They're not like the column unit. I've got a few choices here. I could fling my dragoons up and try to trade shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could get to this hex, but remember I gotta pay 1 to change facing. And that means I don't have enough movement to launch, to get into position to fire enough enfilade and launch a melee attack, which would have been a good combination. And I'm just in kind of the wrong place, which is why it's kind of good that the Continentals pulled back a hex, because if I was here, I would have been able to do that. Which means there's kind of a question of whether I want to fling that out there, because it'll pretty much be turned into meat. And I think the answer is no. I'll take a more conservative approach and try to build up a line up here. Now, conceivably, I could send somebody like Erskine around to try to deal over here, but what he can command effectively, the two units that he can command effectively, really isn't enough to cope with what I'm facing, which means I'll be outmaneuvered out there as long as Lee is able to get a roll, because if he gets anything over a 0, he'll be able to activate one of these commands, and it'll be a bunch of units that can do stuff, melee and such not. So I'm probably best off playing the game that the Continentals are handing me, which is, yeah, you're going to be fighting over this crossroad. That's our position at the end of turn 2, with the British line heading up here. Now, I've got Loose over here. That's kind of nice, because he gives me a lot more tactical flexibility than these independent units. I can have just Loose back somewhere within 5 of Cornwallis, and then he can extend the line a little bit more. So I'm counting on being able to outnumber Wayne and Lafayette here. Which, again, it's the problem with heading up this way. But I kind of feel like I had to send somebody up that way, and to get the speed to get here, I want to send Lee over there. And do I want to just send 1 brigade, or do I want to send 2? Well, we're going to see how ugly this is very shortly, but then we'll see. That was the end of the British turn. There are 2 rebel territories under control, which means they get the first victory point of the game. Yay! Got a 2-point roll, able to move both the commanders here, staying back so he can command his artillery. I may have moved that artillery a little too far. I get confused because the half movement points don't apply for the artillery there. So, but yeah, we got a couple of brigades coming up, and I can decide what to do with them, whether I want to push down this way or try to cut around here and maybe make it behind, which would be pretty sweet, but it's hard to move through that shit. Remember, the forests disorder you. Yeah, not if I get in line. But let's see what the stream, I think, does. Let's see, that's got a 3. Yeah, crossing a stream is going to disorder. So crossing here, I'm going to be kind of not in the best of shape, which means if the Brits are able to throw forces there, things happen. Here you've got Wayne deploying most of his units in line. I got some artillery here. Basically, right now I have about numerical parity, I think, with the Brits. I'm not sure, but I think it's time for the Brits to move up and try to send those Continentals running, because we can't just sit here. We will lose the game. I don't know what the victory conditions are. I know what the points are, but I'm not absolutely sure that we just lose. I think it's whoever has the most victory points. Because I don't see any kind of chart that compares victory points. Yeah, there it is. So actually, yeah, these advanced scenarios, you take the Colonials and subtract them from the British. So actually the British are at a slight disadvantage here. They have to get 6 positive points to get to a draw. Right now, they're losing another point this turn. Next turn, it'll be 2 points of the 3 territories. So they're kind of on the offensive here. The end of the British movement phase. Now we're at the interesting point. Reciprocal artillery, there's an artillery down here that's unlimbered. This one's still limbered, this whole pile. That's the infantry that's deployed. So there's not going to be any reciprocal artillery fire. So then we go to reciprocal infantry fire. And we roll a die. Odd, it'll be the Continentals. Okay, so the Continentals have to go first, which isn't a bad thing at all. Now, if I start down at this side, then the Brits would be continuously behind me. If I start here, it may even be worse. Unless the Brits go in the other direction, right? But let's see, if I start here, I go here, the Brits go here, I go here, the Brits go here, and I get 2 passes without a problem. Here I clearly get 2 passes without a problem. I don't know which one's better. I'm going to start here. It looks a little more valuable, perhaps. So I've got a firepower of 4. I'm going to unload that into this unit because this unit's a little less capable. There's lights, but they're not broken down. I think only the broken downs have the special woods movement. So now I'm line at minimum range, strength of 4, Continentals. Firing at line and dragoon unit here. So I need a 3 or higher to have any effect. I get a 2, that's no effect. Now, here's where it gets tricky. I mark this here, as in that guy is the line that I've fired at. Now, if the Brits do this, they're just following and they're going to fall behind. So I'm going to fire this guy. I want to fire all my units that I can. This is blocked line of sight, so I've got 5, and it's got to go in front of me. It's line, British, firing at line and dragoon. I need a 2 or better to hit. I get a 4, that's a disorder marker. Okay, the disorder, what does that do? Good question, huh? I think it prevents him from firing, among other things. Morale rating is reduced by 2 when disordered, that's all. That doesn't seem like enough. That's something else. Yeah, because I think disorder... if it doesn't prevent fire... Yeah, it doesn't prevent fire. It causes you to use the crappy table, though. It had an effect. Okay. So... we can go to here. This is the next space that we'd have in line. And this is kind of the problem. I could jump over these guys, but I can't go back to them then. So now I'm at maximum range 5. I'm going to fire at this unit again. Maximum range. This is not open line. Infantry at maximum range. I'm over here. It's Continentals, not Americans. At line, I need 5 or 6 to succeed. You might want to pass by and not fire certain units. There's no ammo depletion or anything in this, but... Okay, so the Brits have the next fire, which is a 6 coming from here. We'll shoot that. This is kind of a low morale unit. That should be fun to hit. 5, we get another disorder marker there. You can see we're reducing something. The firepower that the Americans have. Now, if I don't skip this unit's going to get shot at next. This unit's going to be firing on this crappy table, whereas this thing, if I get to shoot first, I'll fire here 4. So I'm going to actually skip over down to here. And I'm going to shoot, I guess it doesn't matter, I'll shoot these guys. I get a 4, that's a morale check. hit these. I think they need a 5 or less to succeed. British units are good. And they certainly succeeded. Maybe less than a 5. I'd have to look it up if I'd rolled a 5. So we've made our way here. This guy's next. Now I could pump some fire into those already disordered units, and I believe that's actually to my advantage. So we're going to do that. 6 line infantry. That's not open line, I don't believe. Oh, those aren't lights anyway. 6 line infantry British at line and dragoon. There's no space for disordered, I don't believe. 4, I get another disorder. That routes this unit. So now it's got the 3 hex retreat. Back to here, I guess. And that was this unit firing. That means we're down to this. Except I could conceivably drop to this, but it doesn't have anything in range. So we'll go to this unit, and then the Americans are done. And that's a disordered unit firing at line. That's this. 5 or 6 for a morale check. I get a morale check on a 5. Uh-oh. I think it succeeded, but I can't be sure. It probably did because loose gives him a 1-point morale bonus, I believe. If that's what I recall, but we'll see. Okay, first thing we look at is a morale check. Probably up here in procedure. Less than or equal to current morale, it passes its morale rating. So those 6s are going to be real hard to budge, right? All right, the Americans are done. The colonials are done. This unit has not fired yet, so 6 going into the colonials. And you can see the colonials don't really have the capability to stand up well when faced here. 4, that's another disorder marker. Another one here, fire 7 more of them. 2, that's a morale check. Well, his morale is 0, but it might be 2 because of Wayne. So I'm going to make a quick roll. He's breaking no matter what, so I don't have to look up the rolls yet. And we keep running. Brits, only the Brits are firing at this point. 7 going into there. I got to make sure these aren't open infantry. Let me pause. I broke them down. They're only open if I break them down. So we were here 7, firing into that. 2, that's a disorder marker. And you can see, I mean, these games are always a little fiddly. And now 6 more line firing. 5, that's another disorder. That's another rout. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to check the morale of the units that are next to units that rout. So let's check him. He's either a 3 or a 5. I don't know which. Okay, we got to check that. And him as well, same thing. Now these guys would only be disordering. Okay, so let's see what the leadership effect is. Yeah, that's a morale bonus within 1 hex. That's what I remember it being. Okay, so he succeeds and he succeeds. Neither one fails. I think there was a route that went by this guy too, so he also has a 5 check that he has to make, and he's fine as well. All right, now we have the opportunity to melee, and there's no withdrawal before melee or anything like that here. He's in command, full command, so I can go in. Do I want to? I am bigger. Let's look at the chart. We don't have any interesting terrain there. Okay, it's not a differential. I am 5 to 4. That's 125%. There's no marker for that, so it would be 100%. My morale bonus, though, is 6, because of the leader, to 2. 6 to 2 is plus 4, we'll do that. And we get a DR, that's a disorder and a retreat. I believe we went into the hex. So these guys route, they're not next to anything, so it's no problem. And we went into this hex. And we may want to turn this way, simply because now we're better positioned. Alright, well, next turn we have lots of rallying to do, something we haven't seen, but our Americans, and by the way, the Americans did push forward. I don't want to make it, I know that I said this is not the historical. I think I pushed forward more aggressively than they historically did. And you can kind of see it's not necessarily that good a thing. Anyway, we're holding 2 of these still, so that's just 1 victory point for them. And nothing for the Brits yet. Alright, so entering turn 4, and here it's 11:20 in the morning. They're 20-minute turns, about the same size as the TSS system. General Lee gave me a 0, which means those things can move, but none of them can use administrative movement or whatever. The first thing that happens in a turn is rally. We haven't seen it before. Basically, all these units are Waynes, so I can't tell Lafayette to handle any of these. This is going to be a problem because Wayne has a 2, 1, 2, 3. Actually, he can't get this one. His units are out of range, so he's going to only be able to rally the ones that are in his command range, and he can only rally 2 of the 3 units that are there anyway, which means these other guys, I believe, retreat 2 hexes at this point. Now here's something that's screwy. So apparently there were different rally rules in the initial game. They still apply, but I really hate when games screw around and have like 4 hexes for retreat. If you don't rally, this is different from most games. The TSS series tends to give you a bigger retreat on the initial route and a smaller, sometimes a smaller retreat for the follow-up as it continues. Here it's actually opposite, I think, assuming that I have the route correct. But anyway, where was I? I don't remember. It's going to be difficult to rally these guys. Any leader can, oh, yeah. So there's different rules somewhere for rallying here for this basic game, which I don't know even where they are, but this refers to them. The rally procedure in the introductory scenario still applies. Well, I don't read the fucking introductory scenario, right? Because I don't want to play that. And I don't see any rally rules here, but maybe it's buried in here somewhere. Anyway, I really despise when games refer to rules that are embedded somewhere else, or that give you rules and then take them away to some extent or whatever. Here it looks like it's adding to them, but it's not really like, oh, here's an optional rule for you. It's, here's the rule, but you don't use it for this scenario. Yeah. And I understand the desire to try to make the game a little bit simpler for that first scenario or whatever, but not really, because all we're adding here, command radius, activation, and rally. And I don't know, math fatigue too, but I really don't know. But I don't even know where the rally rules are for the initial one. Let me make sure I got my routes right. 3 hexes for the initial route, yeah. Okay. So yeah, now I have this problem with these guys running away. And I don't have, like, Lee could go and step on them and stop them. But beyond that, because of the choices that I made, it looks to me like I have to fling Wayne back to deal with them. And that starts causing problems where I'm no longer in command if I'm not careful. Uh-oh. Having to pay for all the facing changes and such is also a pain in the butt. How much does it add? I don't know. You know, you have this in Musket and Pike as well. But I tend to compare this more to the TSS system because that's what it was directly derived at the same, or Wellington's victory was at the same time. And here I am, you know, if I have a unit here and a unit here and I want to swap them, I've got to do all kind of complicated stuff to move them where they're both, you know, spending a couple of movement point, or a movement point to change facing, move in, another movement point to change facing. It's just really, really finicky and picky. I don't know what to say. You know, when you're dealing with large linear movements, and I think I have this problem. I bet it's there in the battles of the Age of Reason. There's a fair amount of pieces in that game, and it's there in the Labatt games. When you start dealing with facing costing movement points, you're really getting to the point where it's starting to add this level of mechanical complexity that I don't want to play with a lot of pieces on the board anymore. Now, I like my big sprawling games. This isn't too horrible, but it starts to get a little crowded. And it does start to get a little finicky. And you can see where making those extra counting jobs, that extra effort, that just becomes such a pain in the ass that even Ney versus Wellington never felt good to me. I know some people love the game. And think it's sort of the exemplar of the Wellington's victory system. Well, maybe it is. It has always fallen flat with me. This one didn't as badly because there isn't as much maneuvering capability. There isn't as much maneuver going on, and the maneuver is generally these, you know, units heading off someplace like this. Like, for example, here I've got Maxwell heading this way. Not quite sure why, because the road is not particularly effective for me right now, but because Lee is running down here to get these routed units. That's something new. By the way, these are, this one might be my handwriting, but these are something my ex-wife used to do for me, and she got me into the habit of writing these up myself. This kind of looks like my handwriting. Writing down the sequence of play and notes and such on a little sheet. These are, we used to both work in a parking lot. Anyway, we have something new here, which is the artillery fire. Now, there's only, I think, one gun exposed that can fire. I'm going to be unlimbering more, and the Brits are unlimbering. But there was one that was in place where it could fire. So we get to at least see how much better that chart is. I want to plug low morale unit with lots of firepower. That just seems wise. Now, minimum range artillery, I would guess. Let us make sure. Minimum range is 2 hexes, medium's 4. Maximum changes for each. But there's only 2 shots for artillery, and that's the most it ever is. However, it has its own special column. It's firing at line units as usual. And all we get is a morale check, which means it's pretty likely to succeed, being British regulars. Okay, and now we're going to go down the line again. Let me do the thinking for which side. Well, let's see who goes first. The Colonials are going to get the chance to go first. So now these guys can't shoot, but here is my first shot here, and my firing goes all the way through to here. For the British, they have less units, so they could race me wherever I am and kind of win. So like if I pick here, they could pick here. I'd get first shot at this. They could shoot at this. Then if I shoot at this again, they're ahead of me shooting down the line. So no matter what, because I have more units, I'm going to end up losing whatever first fire advantage I have. So it kind of doesn't matter which way I go. So I'm going to just start up here. Almost nothing happens. This long-range fire is really, really unlikely to do anything of value. Did we have a casualty? No. I didn't think so, but yeah, casualties we have to mark down there as well. But yeah, this is... the Brits are going to push closer, though, now on their side of the turn. They're going to try to break this Continental line. But the Continentals, if they can stand a long range and kind of just plink shots back and forth, they're happy with that, you know, because right now we're getting 2 points per turn as long as we stay out there. Once the Brits push us back, we start getting less. And the Brits launch their attack. Let me just get these leaders where I want them. I didn't bother. Big morale bonus from him. I might as well have them next to the line for that. I don't know. These guys don't actually add a morale bonus, so screw that. But that guy does. Okay. So the base idea is to put a lot of pressure right here and see what happens. And now we're in closer range, which means we're going to be firing on the minimum range charts again and just seeing if we can give them a good shove back. It's not likely to cause casualties unless we get the melee chances, but we're going to see some of those, I think. Here I'm charging guns. That's going to be kind of scary. Let's do that because that's actually the next thing. Is that's the only gun available. I limbered this and moved it forward. It's always hard to position your artillery in this game. It doesn't have a lot of mobility. It's like you move or fire, and that's true with a lot of them. But also, it just doesn't feel like, you know, you're setting up a line like you are in, say, well, in CWB, because of the increased ranges with the rifles, etc. You're usually setting up a line and there's artillery placed in it. Napoleonic series, Napoleonic games, you tend to be pulling your artillery forward more than you do here. I'm not sure quite why. Trying to think if there's anything in the rules that is particularly painful for artillery here. But I always feel like I'm screening my position so that if I fall back, I can put my artillery here. I mean, what I don't want to do is put my artillery up here where it can get shot easily. However, I can put it here and fall back around it. That sounds wise. Okay, let's take care of this shot, though. We've got artillery at minimum range. That's here, A, and I'll shoot the flank side over there, closer to my flank. It gets a morale check, I'm sure. It's a 5. It's fine, probably. And it holds. And you can barely, you know, you really can't affect the Brits because of this. Now we again have to make the decision. Hey, who's going first on the decision? Again, it's the Colonials get the choice. So it's either down here or here. This is more important because right away we're plinking on the line. I'm going to shoot here first. This guy, although he's 2 hexes away, doesn't have the arc on it. So I'm going to shoot right in front of me here. That means the Brits are probably going to start at this side. Now, it's the question of whether I want to fire these at all or start right in with the units that are heavy. Or another thing, the Americans shoot here, I can shoot this and get a jump on them. And if I disorder or route that, though, then they jump ahead of me, and it's generally not worth doing. Pain in the butt of having to move these suckers all around, trying to remember who's firing where. Again, there's a lot to this system that makes it very clear to me that it was inferior to the TSS system, even if it, you know, had some things that people like better. Pushing my way down here. Ah, shit. Yeah, it is there. I wanted to say, you know, I think disorder should have an effect on your fire capability. I may have noticed this before, but yeah, it's part of this thing. And this is another thing. I don't know if it's part of this column or row here. Um, I have not the easiest time reading texts and seeing how they work out. And it may just be what I'm used to. It may be something else. But it's always been difficult to me to look at, oh yeah, I'm one of this, look through this whole list of different things to try to figure out which one applies to me. And then for the targets, you have the same thing. Yes, you start adding icons or something like that, and I'll have difficulty with that too. You know, I'm not the easiest person to please in a lot of ways, but it definitely is one of the things that sticks to me. And when I say it's the inferior system, I mean in terms of playability, in terms of not having all this mechanical overhead. And Musket and Pike has a lot of mechanical overhead, but the battles tend to be pretty small. This is the smallest game in this system, and look how many pieces it has. Probably more than any Musket and Pike battle out there. You know, what we're seeing right now, hey, I can handle this, but this is about the size of the Musket and Pike games. You start getting to tons of counters like you have in Wellington's Victory, and man, you know, I mean, seriously, think about it. You know, a multi-map stretching across with tons of troops on it, and you've got to follow these little things. Jesus Christ. And, you know, that's where games like Labatt break down for me, too. Maybe they work. Yeah. Labatt probably is more applicable to this, being able to split it into multiple player, you know, players taking different sections of the borders, different commands and stuff like that. But the problem with this system is you don't have, like, you can't handle things locally. You can't handle small amounts of things. But, of course, with Labatt, it's not I go, you go. At least not now. So it's not like you get that much advantage by having a bunch of different people playing at the same time. People get a chance to rest when it's not their action, but there's more downtime with chip pull instead of the I go, you go, where, like, you know, you could have 3 people on the side all moving all their pieces at once, right? All right. Show you one of the reasons. Here, this guy's firing at these disordered units. I already resolved it, but, well, since disordered firing units have a disadvantage, I could actually see where the target type is a little different with disordered units. So now I have to check all these. And again, if I walk away for a little while, if I haven't played the game in the last, in my case, you know, a couple hours, but also if I haven't played it in a week, if I've been playing it heavily and then I set it up again, I'm gonna have to make these checks again, right? Would I have to make these checks in a TSS type game? Yeah, but it's much easier. I'm not picking through multiple places where there's text. I look at the one place where the modifiers are. And if that list isn't very big, and it isn't in the TSS system, it is in some other designs. And that's where it gets. If you start putting too much complexity in, and there may be enough complexity baked into here that this is better. Certainly it allows you to produce something that's much, much more differentiated from your normal fire effect charts that the TSS systems have. And, you know, the trade-off between being able to be more expressive, and you could call that realism, but whatever, it's more expressive, making it easier to map to reality, and being simpler, you know, and in this case we're really talking mechanically simpler more than anything else, and textually this takes up a lot of space, you know. It's an argument that you could go either way on, and because there's no question there are mechanically simpler ways of representing combat that really don't capture much of the flavor and spirit of this. And there's things that I like about this design. There's no question about that. It's pushing my willingness to deal with mechanical complexity too far. And I think that's always been the problem with it. Is I'm cursing while I'm moving because I have to worry about the damn fiddling around with which hex corner I'm facing and paying movement point costs to change that. Because my brain doesn't work that way. It hasn't been trained that way. All the other war games are like, oh yeah, I can move this many hexes, right? Same thing with this. I'm not dealing with a simple combat results table. Why do I like Desert Fox then? Yeah, good question. You know, Desert Fox, OCS, they have something not too dissimilar from this. And you can even say maybe it was derived from it. I don't know if there was something earlier in this that had this kind of, you know, different columns based on that. Ashen Court may have had something similar to that, actually. I remember that having some annoying factors to it. Now we have some shock combat capabilities. In shock combat, you're basically moving into the same hex. Well, that means, oh look, I have 13 here. Can I get 13 into that hex? And we look, and clear is 16. That sounds possible. But then there's the question if I just want to try to bust them up more heavily, or if I want to focus strength. I'm going to try to bust them up more heavily because I believe I have both numerical and quality superiority here. So we'll push this guy in there. I don't know if all these have to be declared at once. I could really hurt myself if they do, just because I don't have a whole of a lot of time. Order. Okay, cool. So yeah, why don't we chuck these guys in here? So that's 6 to a 4 is 150%. And I've got 6 to 3 morale, which gives me a +3. That'll be here. And again, because I find myself having to find my place on things and use little markers to indicate where I am. Okay, so I get a 4, that's a DR. DR, well, that's what we had before, and I didn't do it correctly. It's lose a strength point and retreat 3 hexes. That's not what I did before. I thought I did disorder. Oh, wait, DR is disorder and retreat 3 hexes here. Ah, if you're already disordered. Okay. So, yeah, I did it right. Yeah, again, representation on each target is different. It really is kind of, I don't know, more burdensome than I like, I'll tell you that much. And I'm going to face this way because I'm expecting to take this hex. Let's go to the next one down the line. These guys are charging in. Now here there's a strength point for those guns. They don't count all 2. So I've got 4 strength points total. That's going to only be 150% again. The morale is 1, 2, 3 versus 5. So it's only a +2 morale on this unit. Okay, the attacker takes that DR. The defender is going to take a morale check at a 1. Well, this is not what I wanted. I didn't want a bad die roll there. 1, 2, 3. Maybe we should pick up Erskine. 1, 2, 3. Just so we can rally. Okay, the defender's going to take a morale check. Now, he had a morale of 3. He holds up, but he also took a hit. We haven't had a hit yet. Let's look at this. This is a 3. Goes down to a 2. Top unit takes the hit. And I can't do this one-handed. At least not without tweezers. Which I can't do left-handed. Yeah, I'm not very good with tweezers either. Now, what I have to do is I have to look up the valuation of those units. Now, I don't think casualties are actually noted here as being worth victory points. And I'm not absolutely sure they're worth anything. Yeah, advanced scenario gives it a here. Okay, so I just killed a colonial infantry or militia, so that is the first British point gained. And yeah, I'm gonna have to look those up all the time too. That probably should be on my little notes, but I'm not as good at doing those. So did we do everything correctly up to that unit? Yeah, we did. And I'm gonna handle the rest of these offline just because, again, the process is so damn tedious compared to what I'm used to in the war games. Now, again, you could compare that to, well, I'm used to risk and I just roll some dice. Sure, you know. It's just over the case, over a period of what, you know, I've been wargaming for close to 40 years now, and over that time, not many systems like this have come along into my life, and those that have just not caught with me because they're just beyond my limit in terms of this mechanical complexity side of things. So we definitely need to do this. So here I have a 7 hitting a battery. The battery only has 1 strength point, which means I'm at 600%. My morale is 5, theirs is 6, so the morale is actually -1. Let's see what happens. This is interesting because those are unlimbered guns. 1, oh, it doesn't go well for me. Both sides are disordered. See, the thing is, I believe if I go in there, I capture the guns if I get that hex. But instead I got flung back by them. Now, that means I can't throw this in too, but the extra strength wasn't going to help me there, so we'll just continue smacking down the line. And this isn't going as well for the Brits as I thought it would. I thought they'd give a good hearty shove like they did up here, and instead, man, they're getting repulsed. Final, I'm going to combine these 2 units to go in here, and that's going to be 11 to 5. That gets me 200%. I'll put this guy on top so his morale counts, so it gives me a +2 morale. Attacking this unit didn't seem... attacking singly wasn't going to work, so we're there, and we'll see what happens. And we get a DR, so we get to chase them back. There's cannons under there, but they're limbered, so they can run just fine. And we'll get those guys out of there. Units which attack advanced. Americans are in charge of 3 of those things, so they get 2 points. And that is the end of turn 4. Now this would be the beginning of, I think, the next biggest scenario. And you can see, okay, you know, basically what it does is it sets you up the initial lines of battle. That's what we've done so far in the game. I see no reason not to give me that flexibility to set those up. But in some sense, if you're not quite sure how you'd want the battle to develop, I can see jumping ahead to that. It also doesn't go as far, although it says 20 here, it really isn't. But you could actually use that setup point and just boom, you know, try to play the whole thing through from there, and it wouldn't be bad either. As you can see, things end up kind of as a mess. And again, that adds to that mechanical complexity because now I've got a lot of crap to deal with here. I got a lot of rallying. I got to fiddle around with trying to redress my lines and all that. It's interesting. I enjoy it in this game. I'm always trying to figure out why I can't handle Ney versus Wellington, though. Why I probably can't handle Wellington's victory, although I haven't tried it. And I think my problem with Ney versus Wellington is really it is too big and too soon. You know, it starts out with all the troops on the board. It probably is about the same size in terms of number of units. And also, you know, the units are higher quality and everything. So there's a lot less dramatic pushes back. But this is a game about shoving more than like causing casualties. And there's things to like about that. There's no question about that. Okay, let's send this one up.